The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Good morning and welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. My name is Adrian Benjamins and I'm joined by Neil Rochlani. Neil, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Adrian. Good to be back on with you, talking about the Southwest Division. A lot of preseason football going on, but we're going right into basketball.
You know, Neil, this time of year I get super antsy. We're going through that lull that I talked about, really slow news. And usually at this time, I start kind of going a little crazy. I start getting antsy. But I'm really trying to enjoy this quiet period because I know this season is going to be nuts for us. I know, Neil, I mean, we're adding all these hoop ball leagues to our to all the other leagues that we're doing. There's big plans for this season. I know, hoop ball is growing. We're going to be taking on some more responsibility. So I'm really trying to enjoy this slow time. I'm really just trying to recharge because this season is going to be insane.
Yeah, I think guys have to jump in with both feet. It's going to be nuts. I'm going to try to do as many leagues as possible, which I don't know what that means. The most I've done in the prior years is like 3, and that was hard to really try to do them well. So I'm going to try to juggle probably about 3 times that this year, and who knows what hoop ball will bring our way. So
what's going on with the listener leagues right now?
Oh, yeah. So listener leagues we have open. If you're interested, we've got about 100 people, 100 to 110 people signed up so far. We've got free leagues, cash leagues that are $50, rotisserie and head-to-head format. So they're all 9 category. If you're interested in joining, you probably know this, but you can tweet at me. You tweet at Dan. I'm at Ball with Neil. BALLWITHNEIL, and then there's at Dan Bespris. There's also a Hoop Ball forum page that you can go to and post your information there, and I will get the link to join whichever league you're interested in. Adrian, we've got to figure out a league we can be in together so we can talk trash and hopefully not get killed by some of our listeners. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey, special shout out to my fellow fantasy freaks in Hoop Ball Dynasty League 2. We are waiting for one last team to join. It's going to be a 24-team startup Dynasty League. Super pumped on this league, Neil. I can already tell we got some great people in the league. It's going to be so much fun. And so we're just waiting for this last team, and then we're going to get started on our draft, which is going to be an 8-hour per pick slow draft, 24 teams multiplied by 15 players per team. So we got a long way to go. But hey, guys, super excited for this season, and I can't wait to get underway.
Yeah, that's going to be a blast. I didn't make the cut, by the way, for that draft. No.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have – I'm not a dynasty person.
It's time to get your feet wet, man.
I know. I think I would. I didn't know how to approach it, so I know you are one. So I'm curious to see what I can learn by just kind of observing you this season. Yeah, good job with commissioner of that league. I'm sure it'll go well. 24 teams, quite deep. That's when you really have to know your stuff, right? Because you're starting to draft guys. Like your mid-round picks are like the top 150. And then all your picks, like you're drafting almost like 24 times 15, 360 players. That's crazy. So
yeah, we're going 360 players deep. So we're going to be drafting a lot of guys who aren't going to get a lot of playing time. And then, the other main strategy in a league like this, it's really intriguing to see how the value of the really young guys go, because you have to devalue guys who are who are older, who are kind of on their way out, and you got to raise the value of these really young guys. So it's really interesting to see how they mix. So this is going to be a very interesting draft, and I can't wait for it to get underway. I'm already thinking of my draft strategy, and I got a good one that I'm going to go for. I don't want to talk about it because I know a lot of these guys are listening. So after it gets underway, or when we're about halfway through, I'll talk about it then. But all right, Neil. So kind of slow as far as NBA news goes, but there is one thing that I wanted to ask you about. So I was watching ESPN's show this morning called Get Up. They were talking about Miles Turner, and they were talking about how he's using yoga to kind of reshape his body to get prepared for the season. He's changed his diet. I want to know, does something like this, do you buy into this kind of narrative? Does this will this change your opinion on a guy? And do you start buying into the hype on a guy like that when he starts doing something like that?
Well, this feels like someone in his PR camp is just trying to get out there that he is really preparing for the season and he's going to be ready to go and not injured. I don't know what to make of it other than I've always been a Miles Turner fan. I know he struggled last year, and I think a lot of that was he might have been playing injured. So I don't really take much more in that. What I really focus on the offseason news is more about injuries, guys getting minor surgeries or guys sitting out for a while. These pieces about their health and their really commitment to the game or just their intense workouts, it's so hard to know what is just like a normal NBA offseason and what is extra special. So I will say I was just doing a mock draft before we came on here, and he was ranked 50th, which I thought was surprisingly low. But you know what? I haven't really dived into my rankings yet. What do you think? First of all, what do you think of that piece, and then what do you think about him going into the next year?
So I am a sucker, Neil, for yoga watch. Muscle watch, whatever watch. I'm a sucker, man, and I'm buying in. There's pictures online of Miles Turner doing a headstand in some crazy yoga pose. He posted a picture of him before he started this regiment and after, and the pictures are amazing. And I'm buying in, man. And I, like you, was a fan of Miles Turner even before all of this hype. And I'm buying in. I'm all aboard the Miles Turner hype train again. I really hope he doesn't let us down this year again. And now, you talked about his ranking on ESPN mock drafts being around the 50 range. And I think that's kind of reflective on where he finished last season, because he did finish around that range. Now, I think he's going to be drafted much higher than that. Now, Neil, last year he was like an end of a first round, second round draft pick. He's not going to go that high. So I'm really hoping I can land him in maybe the end of third to fourth round range. So I'll be really happy to get him there. And I think the sky's the limit for him. I mean, the blocks, he can shoot threes for a big. We know that's huge. So he's got the complete package. I really hope he has a great season, man. I really want him to do well because I'm a big fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I want to see him do well too. And Dan and I last night were talking about win totals, and Indiana was sort of my last team that I thought about going over on. And one of the reasons I think is that Miles Turner did not have a very good year last year, and they still won 48 games. Their total for this year is 47.5. So I think if he has a stronger year, I think that total is in play to go over. So I hope he does well. It's great to see guys that, what I love about fantasy basketball are guys that can block and shoot well. Usually that's it's so hard to find a really good shooter and a really good shot blocker. So I love those guys, and Turner falls in that category.
All right, Neil, I can already tell this is going to be a long one. Let's start getting into the Southwest Division. Hey, it's Friday. Let's go out with a bang. So, Neil, we've been touching on the divisions in the NBA. We've been looking at each division, trying to decide if teams are winners or losers from free agency. Today we're going to talk about the Southwest. Let's start with the best team in this division, the Houston Rockets. Neil, do you consider this team a winner or a loser from this free agency, from this offseason period?
Yeah, this one so the win total has dropped 10 from last year. So, I mean, their projected win total for the betting markets, 65 wins last year, 54.5 is the over under this year. So I guess losers. I mean, I don't know how you go down 10 projected wins and not be thought of as not having a great offseason. The loss of Trevor Ariza, I mean, he's one of those guys that doesn't get a lot of hype, but I guess he really plays a huge role in that team doing well. And I'm curious to see how Carmelo Anthony will fit in. I'm assuming he's going to be in a starting role. I don't know if he'll be finishing games, but I don't know what he brings. I know that the management there, Daryl Morey, really wanted Anthony there, and I'm a big believer in that organization. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. He's going to fit in just fine. I'll see it when I believe it, though. Last year he really struggled in the OKC's offense. I know this is a much different offense in terms of it's much more three-point friendly and getting guys open looks. So, but offseason wise, I would say losers. I am looking forward to talking about more of the player breakdown when we get there. But I'll let you go. I'll let you jump in on your thoughts about the offseason with Houston.
Neil, I'm stamping this team a loser from this offseason. The loss of Trevor Ariza is huge. A great defender who they need to help them against teams like the Warriors, help them guard guys like Durant, Klay Thompson. Losing a guy like Trevor Ariza, his defensive presence, that's a giant loss. I don't like the addition of Carmelo Anthony. I just, maybe he helps them with some scoring as like a third scorer, but just what they've lost on the defensive end does not make up for that for me. Also lost the guy, Luke Amute, another good defender, like role player guy off of the bench that they lost. So I'm stamping this team a loser. Of course, James Harden's going to be the guy on this team that you want to own. Top 3 pick overall in my book. I love Clint Capella. Led me to some championships last season. I think he's going to have a great year. Hey, no Trevor Ariza, as we mentioned. Melo's going to maybe space the floor a little bit. I think Clint Capella could see a spike in blocks, in rebounds. So I really like him. Neil, I'm fading Chris Paul. Just another year older. He's shown that he just can't get through a full season. He kind of always seems to miss weeks due to whatever, pulled hamstring, whatever happens. So I'm kind of fading Chris Paul this year. Not a big fan of their bench. Ryan Anderson, Eric Gordon, Michael Carter-Williams. I'm not a big fan of their bench. Now, they did draft a nice young kid, DeAnthony Melton. I really like this kid. Now he's going to be playing behind Chris Paul and James Harden, so he may not get a lot of minutes, but in these really deep dynasty leagues, I think he's a really great guy to look at. And that's about it for the Rockets, Neil. Any closing thoughts on them?
Yeah, just real quickly. Chris Paul only played 58 games last year, like you said. So he did finish 14th overall in ACAT. But if you take a guy in the second round, which is assuming I imagine where he went last year, and he only plays 58 games, and you're concerned that he's not going to play more than 60 again, then it's really hard to win a league with that little performance. So I would take him if he fell to the third round. I just don't know if he'll fall that far. Capella finished 44th overall last year in ACAT. Really hampered by sort of his free throw percentage. Other than that, he's obviously stacked. If he can somehow turn that around, he could, I think, move up a little bit. The one guy that I'm going to be kind of lurking around in later rounds, if he's still there, is Eric Gordon. Finished 89th last year in ACAT on 69 games. I think he may get he scored 18 points a game last year, which is a lot, but I think he might even get more looks. If Paul, is resting or is hurt, he might do pretty well in terms of beating that this year. So that's sort of my take on those guys. No one else really is fantasy relevant for me on that team. So you want to move to our second team? Where do you want to go?
Yes. Next? No, let's move on. And next team I got up. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans. Neil, what do you think of them? Would you consider them winners or losers?
Yeah, this is a tough one because they certainly played well without DeMarcus Cousins last year, and Anthony Davis really cemented his role as a number one fantasy player once Cousins went down, and the team seemed to play just fine from a wins-loss perspective without him. But I still think Cousins is one of the best big men in the league, so I don't know how to call this. Their win total is basically the same, so I would say maybe just winners because they have more clarity now. They've got Randall, who I'm still not sold on. And then obviously they kind of swapped Rondo for Peyton at the point guard position. And from a fantasy perspective, I'm not sure there's much difference there. So I would just go winners in that I can feel like I can predict them a little bit better. What are your thoughts on the Pelicans?
Neil, I agree with you. I'm gonna say that they're winners from this offseason. Yes, they lost DeMarcus Cousins, but I felt like they played a little bit better when DeMarcus Cousins was out of the lineup at the end of last year. When Anthony Davis had that front court to himself, I felt like the ball moved better spacing. The offense just ran a little bit better. So I like their offseason additions. Julius Randle, I think, is going to be a great fit in that front court. They also added Elfrid Payton, who I think is going to be a nice fit next to Drew Holiday. I think they're going to be a nice pairing in the backcourt. Neil, this is a really interesting team fantasy-wise. Elfrid Payton, Drew Holiday, who had an amazing season last year. He's going to go in the first 2 rounds of most drafts. I like Nikola Mirotic. I like Julius Randle. Anthony Davis is my number 1 overall player in all of fantasy. I don't like. Just a few days ago they added Jahlil Okafor. I'm not a fan of Okafor. I really don't like his game. Not a great defender. Very limited. Just not a big fan. So I don't know if he's going to stick on the roster all year because I really think they're set with Anthony Davis, Julius Randle, Nikola Mirotic. I like this team, Neil. I think they're winners. Very interesting for fantasy. They got some guys. They got like 4 or 5 guys here that can be fantasy assets. What do you think, Neil?
Yeah, so I'm looking at their rankings from last year. Anthony Davis won, as you said, and won going into this year. I think it's pretty clear in 8 cap playing 75 games. Injury concerns have evaporated somewhat. Drew Holiday, number 19 overall last year in 81 games per averages. So that there may not be any room for growth there. So, yeah, if he goes in the second round, I may not get him. If I could get him in the third round, I would certainly scoop him up. Mirotic finished 56th last year. That's with the Bulls and Pelicans. 55 games, though, with the Pelicans. I see that maybe hanging on there, maybe dropping into the 60s if Randall kind of cuts into his time. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. So those are the 3 guys I'm most keeping an eye on. I don't like guys with like Peyton. I tend to stay away from because he's a point guard with bad percentages, especially from the free throw line. And then Randall doesn't do enough on the blocks for me to really want to get him. Is he someone that you'd like to have on your team? He finished 92nd last year, which I think his name is bigger than that number in terms of like draft position. But where do you think he might finish up this year?
I like Julius Randle. He's shown improvement each and every year. I'm looking to see him take a couple more steps forward. Now, I'm only looking to draft Randle if it's pretty late in my draft. I'm not going to be targeting him early. As you said, the defensive stats aren't there. And also, I'm really curious to see how this rotation shakes out. How many minutes is Randle going to get? Is he starting next to Anthony Davis? Is he coming off the bench behind Nikola Mirotic? So there's too many question marks here. But if he's available late in my draft, I don't mind taking a shot on him. Look, Neil, Julius Randle signed a short contract. He's betting on himself in free agency. He's going to be very motivated to show out. He's going to look to have a big season. And, last year, Neil, I was really impressed with his offseason. He worked really hard to get into shape. He looked really good during the season, showed vast improvement on the court. So I do like Julius Randle. I just need to get him at the right draft price. All right, Neil, let's move on to the next team. Next up, I got the San Antonio Spurs. They had a pretty crazy offseason with the loss of Kawhi Leonard. What are your thoughts on this team? Winners or losers?
Yeah, I think losers, unfortunately. As perhaps the best organization in basketball, unfortunately losing Kawhi Leonard, it's really disappointing from a fan of that team. So I don't know how to really project DeRozan right now. That kind of scares me. And then I don't know what's going to happen with sort of their front court either. Like, is Gasol going to play the 23 minutes he played last year? Can DeJounte Murray sort of step into starter's role? Only played 21 and a half minutes last year. And then will Rudy Gay and be the starter, and can he play sort of back to those starter minutes? This one's hard to project. I mean, I like LaMarcus Aldridge. He finished 26th last year in ACAT, and I think he can finish somewhere in like the high 20s, low 30s. But other than that, this one's gonna be really tough for me to project. What are your thoughts on the Spurs?
Neil, call me crazy, because I'm going to call them winners. And let me tell you why. They were going to lose Kawhi Leonard no matter what. And, Kawhi really had them in a rough spot, because a lot of teams didn't want to give up a lot to get Kawhi, because Kawhi made it very clear that he wanted to come to Los Angeles. So for the Spurs to get DeMar DeRozan in a deal for Kawhi, an all-star, elite player, great scorer, I think he's going to fit really well in Popovich's offensive system. And they also got a nice young piece in Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl, I believe, is going to be their center of the future. It's going to be Pau Gasol this year, but after this year, I think Jakob Poeltl is going to be their guy. And Neil, I really like this team for fantasy. I love DeJounte Murray. I'm really looking for DeJounte Murray to improve this season. He's a guy I'm targeting in drafts this year. I also really like, they drafted a nice young guy in this draft, Lonnie Walker, a very talented athletic wing player. And I think it was like a blessing in disguise that he landed on the Spurs, because the Spurs are really good at developing their young guys. So I'm really happy that Lonnie Walker's going to be properly developed in the Spurs organization. So I really like this team, Neil. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think on paper, you got Rudy Gay at small forward. You got LaMarcus Aldridge still at the power forward spot. Pau Gasol still has some gas left in the tank. I said I love DeJounte Murray in that backcourt, DeMar DeRozan at the 2. I think this is actually going to be a pretty good team, and I think they got a decent haul back for Kawhi Leonard, who, most teams, as I said, they didn't want to give up anything because they considered him a one-year rental. So this was a nice trade for the Spurs, and reality-wise, I really like this team. What are your thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, so real quickly, I agree with you on the sense that it was hard for them to get much in return for Kawhi because of the situation. So to get DeRozan and Poeltl, who are up and well, DeRozan's probably in his prime, but Poeltl's definitely going to be an up and coming player and perhaps a very good role player in the NBA. The one thing I will sort of worry about with Murray is they still have Patty Mills there. They talked about Derek White getting some minutes. I don't know if Murray's going to get enough minutes to be starter worthy. Last year he had 21 minutes and finished at 178. I I think he's worth a late round flyer to see if he does that, but he's someone that if he doesn't really come out of the gate strong, I might cut bait with, because the Spurs are known for sort of playing a lot of guys in the 20-minute range, or like the mid-20s range. So I'm nervous about him. And then Rudy Gay's injury kind of makes me Rudy Gay, I love him as a talent, but his injury history kind of makes me worried about him. I don't know what to do with this team, but yeah, I look forward to see what you have in your projections, because I'm kind of confused right now on how to really project out beyond really Aldridge.
Hey, one last thought on the San Antonio Spurs. I try not to buy in too highly on that revenge game narrative, but I'm buying in when it comes to DeMar DeRozan. Anytime he's playing the Toronto Raptors, he seems genuinely pissed off about them trading him. DFS guys, DFS purposes, anytime DeMar DeRozan is playing against the Toronto Raptors, he will be in my DFS lineup because he is going to go off against that team. All right, Neil, let's move on to the next team. 2 more teams to go. Next up, I got the Dallas Mavericks. Had a very interesting offseason. What are your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks? Are they winners or are they losers?
Well, they've got to be winners getting Luka Doncic, right? They got him. I don't even know what pick overall anymore. I feel like the draft was like last year. But I think it was 3rd overall, right? Is that what they traded up to get him at? I think they had pick 5. They traded up to 3. Yes.
And they got Luka Doncic. Neil, Luka Doncic, I think, the number 1 player in this draft. If he was going, if I had the number 1 pick in this draft, I would pick Luka Doncic. Dallas got him. Not only did they get Doncic, they added DeAndre Jordan as well. So what are your thoughts on this team, Neil?
Yeah, so definitely winners from that perspective. They got 2 great backcourt players. Well, I guess Doncic is a backcourt player. I know he can play the wing as well. But with Dennis Smith Jr., I still think was going to be a very good NBA player. Struggled last year in the percentages and the turnovers, but I think he's going to have an improvement this year. A little worried about how Dirk Nowitzki fits in with this team. I mean, I loved watching him over the last 2 decades, but it's so hard now to play him many minutes. I know he's going to want to play, and I know they're going to want to honor him and not bench him too much, but that really kind of messes the rotation because he might be a starter, but he's not going to be starter's minutes. So then that kind of throws the entire rotation into whack as far as trying to project minutes for me. So this will be a challenge. I don't think I'll end up with Doncic though, because I was looking at I put in his numbers from last year from his EuroLeague, and they were solid on 25 minutes, but they weren't spectacular. And I don't know how it's going to translate to the NBA in his first season. So I probably won't have him in my top 100, and I think he'll go before that. That's what I got so far in Dallas. No one here last year finished in the top. The top guy was DeAndre Jordan, who was on this team at 68th. So it's crazy. They didn't have fantasy wise. They were just not a very good team last year, and obviously reality wise, they weren't either. So how do you see this team as you head into sort of projecting out some of these players?
So I, like you, consider them winners. Luka Doncic, who I earlier said the best rookie in the draft, adding DeAndre Jordan, very dominant front court presence. Very intriguing team for fantasy, Neil. Really curious to see how Dennis Smith Jr. looks this year. What was somewhat of a letdown last year. He came into the season kind of overhyped. A lot of expectations on him. Didn't really live up to those expectations. So I really want to see improvement from him. Also, Luka Doncic. I'm excited to see what this guy can do on the NBA level. I can understand why maybe you're not targeting him this season, but I'm okay with drafting him anywhere after round 6 or later. So midway or later, I think he's going to have a great rookie year. There may be some issues with his shooting, but he's a great passer, really good playmaker, and I think he's going to sprinkle in a little bit of everything. He's going to give you some low-end rebounding, give you some points, give you some assists. So really looking forward to seeing him on the NBA level. Now, out on the wing, we got Harrison Barnes, a guy who kind of let us down a little bit last year. Another guy we had high expectations on. Again, I'd love to see some kind of improvement from him. So, Neil, it's a really interesting team. It's kind of like a team that we want to kind of wait and see what happens. None of these guys were drafting very early, but also would not surprise me if Dennis Smith Jr. shows out, if Luka Doncic shows out, if Harrison Barnes turns it up a notch, if DeAndre Jordan, I think, will be very similar value to what he did for the Los Angeles Clippers in past seasons. This team's really voiding a presence in their front court. So I think DeAndre Jordan is going to get a lot of usage in that front court. I see a lot of pick and rolls, a lot of lobs from Dennis Smith Jr., from Doncic. He's got two playmakers who can get him the ball. So, DeAndre Jordan, not normally a guy I target because of the bad free throw shooting, but if you're punting free throw or you're in a league where you're okay with, his free throw deficiencies, I think DeAndre Jordan will be great. Neil, any closing thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks?
Closing thoughts would be, I guess, Wesley Matthews. He got 33.8 minutes last year, and I just think that's going to take a little bit of a back seat. He's a little bit past his prime with this addition of Doncic on the wing, and see who else they might throw out there. So probably avoiding him. I don't know who I will target in this league. I will probably only, from this team, I'll probably only take someone if they kind of fall a couple rounds past my value. Right now, I'm a little hesitant to take any Mavericks. Not sure how they're going to go. Carlisle's not a coach that tends to play rookies a lot of minutes, but it seems like this year they're kind of made for that. So playing younger guys, so who knows? This is another team I'm still trying to figure out. Should we move over to our last team in the Southwest? Which
yes.
I believe is, sorry, I'm trying to do my filtering. Memphis, the Grizzlies, right?
Yes, Neil, last team up, the Memphis Grizzlies, another very, very interesting team. Neil, every single team in this division has been very interesting from a fantasy perspective. The Memphis Grizzlies, another one of those teams, added a very exciting rookie. I think the second best guy after Doncic, Jaren Jackson Jr. They're getting a healthy Mike Conley back. Mark Gasol. They added Kyle Anderson on the wing. Neil, what are your thoughts on this team? Would you consider them winners or losers?
Yeah, probably winners because they had a great draft. And Jaren Jackson Jr., curious to see if he does get the starting role over JaMychal Green. And out of the gate, or if that comes later in the year. I have a feeling they're not going to be in playoff contention this year, so they may let him run a lot after the All-Star break, if not before. So curious to see that. I'm very curious to see how Dylan Brooks plays out at the shooting guard. Played all 82 games last year at 28.7 minutes. Didn't have great stats, but I think he's a player who's getting better, so his numbers could come up even with the same amount of minutes. And then the two big question marks for me are, I think Gasol will be very similar to last year. He finished 37th. I think that'll be about where I have him ranked. The two question marks I have are Kyle Anderson, who finished 88th last year with San Antonio. How much does he get better playing, or does he get better playing for Memphis, assuming he gets more minutes? And then Conley had an incredible season before he got hurt last year and in the prior year. And how much is he back to that form? I mean, is he a second and third round talent again, or is he more like a mid-round point guard? So those are the questions I'm thinking about this summer as we go into the preseason. What do you think about my analysis so far, and what are your thoughts on this team?
So I would consider them winners. Like you, a lot of question marks. Very, very interested and curious to see if Mike Conley is healthy. A guy we know, if his health is right, solid fantasy asset. Let me down huge last season. And so I'm a little sour on him just because of I had him in a lot of leagues, and I'm a little worried about his health. But if he's right, could be a great steal on draft day. Like you, Dylan Brooks at the 2 spot. Let's see what this guy can do another year in the NBA. Neil, very interested to see slow-mo Kyle Anderson at the 3. What can he do in a featured role on a team like this? Another guy I'm really intrigued to see what happens here. And at the 4, I look for JJJ, Jaren Jackson Jr. to take over that 4 spot. We know what JaMychal Green is. Low-end fantasy player. Not a great NBA player. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the future. He can help this team right away. Neil, Summer League, this guy went crazy in Summer League. The blocks, the threes, his length, his athleticism. I'm salivating right now, Neil. I love this guy. I want him in all my leagues. I'm so excited for this guy, Neil. And then lastly, Marc Gasol, a top-end center option, a guy who's going to be drafted in the first 3 rounds of all fantasy drafts. He's been really good, a do-it-all center, great assists, good blocks. Late in his career, he's adding the 3-point shot to his game. Really like him. Very intriguing team, Neil. Big winners for me, and can't wait to see what happens with this team. Neil, any closing thoughts on this team?
Yeah, I'll just punctuate what you said on Kyle Anderson. He finished 88th last year on only 7.9 points. That's because he did so well in the other categories. Not many threes, but the assists, rebounds were solid. The steals and blocks were really good. So if he is able to be more featured and get more points and continue with his percentages, he could shoot up into a mid-round value. I mean, that would be his ceiling, but that's in play, I think, with him. So if he's sitting there like 9th, 10th round, I might bite on him there. So that's just my first thoughts. That's my final thought on Memphis. Any concluding thoughts from you?
No more thoughts on the Southwest Division. Very interesting division. Every single team has a lot of interesting storylines going into this offseason, going into this preseason. So let's see what happens. Neil, let's wrap the show up. Let's put a bow on it. I'm sure we ran long, but hey, it's Friday and it's lull period time. So let's, Neil, any big plans for the weekend? What do you got going?
I actually have a birthday coming up this weekend. So
wait, your birthday?
My birthday is Saturday. So hey, thanks, man. Yeah. Feel free to. I'll give you my address. You can send me a gift if you want.
Happy birthday, man! So what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm gonna have my family, my sister and her husband and kids live here in Chicago as well. So I'm gonna spend it with them. And then other than that, I'm not sure. That's kind of it. It's gonna be pretty mellow. How about you? What are you up to this weekend?
We're taking the kiddos to the Orange County Fair so they can go on some rides and eat some cotton candy. So we should be a fun weekend. And then I'll hoping again for this Dynasty League to get it underway. Hopefully we get this last team locked up so we can start the draft process. A lot of fun stuff going on with these listener leagues. Neil, we got like 9 weeks to go to the start of the season. I know that kind of sounds like a long time, but it's going to go by fast. I want to thank all you listeners for sticking with us. We got some really fun, exciting plans for this upcoming draft season. We really want to prepare you guys for your drafts, get you guys ready to go so you can just dominate for the season. I'm really excited for this upcoming season, Neil. It's just going to be insane, man. So super stoked. Hey, shout out real quick to Scott Douglas. Thank you so much for helping me set up the Hoopball Dynasty League 2, helping me with the rules and policies. It's a lot more complicated than you would think, man. Neil, any last words for the show?
Yeah, good luck with the commissioner stuff there. I think I'll be helping Dan out with doing being the commissioner on all the regular Hoopball leagues, and I haven't been one before, so this should be interesting. I imagine most of our listeners and readers are good people, so hopefully there won't be too much contention and any issues having to sort out. So that's it, Adrian. Have a great weekend. You want me to take us out? You want to take us out? I feel like you should, since you're the you're like the pro here.
I'll take us out. You guys hit us up on Twitter. He's at Ball with Neil. I'm at Adrian Benjamin. Send us your questions. We'd love to end the show with like a question listener type of segment. Send us any questions you guys got. Thank you guys so much. We hope you guys have had a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys later.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.